Hey, this is Tony with Salt Strong, and in this video I just wanted to highlight these jig heads that I've pretty much been using since day one when I started inshore fishing. And the good news is we now sell these on our shop page, so if you are interested you can get them at fishstrong.com. And we carry both of these two colors, the red and also the chartreuse. And the reasoning behind that is because these are really the only two colors that I feel are necessary when you're fishing inshore, because red is really good in clear water. When the water is very clean, you don't want a lot of contrast on your bait, so I'll go with a red jig head. And then chartreuse works really well if you want some more contrast and a little bit of a brighter color when you're fishing dirty water. Now you'll also notice the 1/8 ounce size. Both of these are 1/8 ounce. And that really gets the job done when you're fishing the flats. You know, if you're fishing the flats, you're usually fishing less than 4 feet of water, and 1/8 ounce works really well. Especially if you have fish that are really finicky, you don't want something that drops down to the bottom really quick and spooks those fish. And that's another thing about these jig heads. I really like how they have a very, slim profile to them. They're very narrow, very skinny. That allows this jig head to get down to the bottom a lot faster than, let's say, bulkier jig head that's a little bit wider. The head of these jig heads is basically shaped like an arrow. So that definitely helps in the water, makes them a lot more hydrodynamic. So they will get down quicker just because of the shape of that jig head. And also it gives it a nice darting action when you're using anything like paddle tails or shrimp imitation lures and anything like that. Now next I just wanted to quickly touch on my favorite baits to use with these jig heads. Anything in that 3 to 4.5 inch range is going to be ideal. When you get into 5-inch baits, that's when this size jig head really is a little bit too small, because you don't want that hook to be too far up on the head of the bait, because then the fish will just grab the tail, they'll grab closer to the middle of the body and they'll miss that hook. So you don't want to use a bait that's too big for these jig heads. So again, go with anything in that 3 to 4 inch range. 4.5 inch probably would be the max. And my favorite lure to use with this is a Gulp Shrimp. Works really good to bounce these along the bottom. Gives them a nice darting action for trout, redfish, snook, and also flounder. Now my next favorite lure to rig up on this jig head is going to have to be the Gulp Swimmin Mullet in the 4-inch size. 4-inch works really good. They also sell, I believe it's a 2.5 or a 3-inch Gulp Swimmin Mullet. It's a little bit too small for this jig head, so I like to go with that 4-inch one. And this is my go-to setup right here for small juvenile tarpon. Either bouncing this along the bottom, again that sort of darter jig head helps give that bait more of a darting action, gets down quicker. And what I like about this jig head as well is it gives a nice, just steady, straight swimming motion with a little bit of a wobble. So when you have these curly tail grubs, or it'll work really well with a paddle tail, 3.5 to 4-inch paddle tail, such as the Slam Shady 2.0, works really well with those baits also. Now another thing to point out with this jig head is notice the eye placement. The eye of the jig head where you tie your line to is on the top of the jig head, closer to the nose. So what this allows, when you're jigging this on the bottom, it falls down to the bottom, it's going to go straight down, and then when you go to pull it up or retrieve it, it's going to pull that jig head up. And what this does, it gives it a good darting motion up and down, but also it helps avoid snags. So let's say you're coming up to, I'll just use this as an example, this gulp container. But if you're coming up to some structure, your jig head is right behind it. Your line is hanging over that structure. Get zoomed in a little bit here. But your jig head is, hanging down behind that structure. You go to pull your line, it's going to pull that jig head up and over the structure and keep you from getting snagged, as opposed to if you had an eye on the front of the jig head, your jig head might turn to the side and get snagged up on that structure. So when you have that eye of the jig head up on top, that can definitely help with darting your lure up and down on the bottom, and also getting up over any structure that jig head may come across. So again, just wanted to quickly highlight these jig heads that we now carry on our shop page, and I've been using these pretty much since day one. I'm not sponsored or affiliated with this company at all. It's just a jig head that Again, I've been using since day one, and they work really well. That's why I wanted to share it with you guys. So if you are interested, we do sell them on our shop page again at fishstrong.com. We have the red 1/8 ounce and also the chartreuse 1/8 ounce. And again, red, I prefer to use that in clean water, less of a contrast with the bait that I'm using. And then chartreuse, that's when I want to use it in dirty water, more of a contrast, and it helps pop and stick out better in that murky water. Now, also keep in mind, if you are one of our insider members, you do get a really good discount on all of our tackle and products that we carry on our shop page. So definitely be sure to take advantage of that. So that will wrap up this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. Also, I'd like to know your feedback. If you have used these jig heads before, what are your thoughts? Definitely let us know down below. Till next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. If you are new to Salt Strong, we are the online fishing club that helps you catch more fish while saving money on your favorite tackle and gear. So if you'd like to learn more, go to saltstrong.com, and we'll see you there.